Hey everyone. My name is Brian Johnsrud. I co-direct the Poetic Media Lab at Stanford University, and I'll be presenting today with my colleague Daniel Bush. And we're going to be presenting on a project called Lacuna, but I want to give you a little overview of what we do as a research lab. So at the Poetic Media Lab, we're interested in how people engage with creative media and narratives across media in the 21st century. So what we do is we build learning and research platforms. We then design engagement, and our major collaborators on campus include the Graduate School of Education, and they help us actually observe practices, which then goes back into our research and development. So actually through student interviews, surveys, focus groups, interviews with faculty, actually understanding how is annotation changing learning outcomes in higher education. So we're going to talk about Lacuna. Lacuna is a project that I started 3 years ago. And it was based off of a problem-based design, namely limitations in educational technologies outside of STEM fields. So we see LMSs and MOOCs really making gains in classrooms where, for instance, you can do objective assessments, so quizzes, multiple choice. But what happens in a humanities or social science classroom when, especially in higher education, we're not asking students to fill out a multiple choice of what happened in Moby Dick, or tell us in a history class at what date or in what location did this historical event happen. We're asking different things: critical thinking, close reading practices, historical inquiry, and that sort of engagement and modeled thinking doesn't really fit well, or didn't fit well, with a lot of the technologies that we had been using. In particular, within the humanities and social sciences, there's this very sort of sacred thing called the seminar. And the seminar is this space where the instructor and students come together, they share ideas, they interact with each other, and you sort of model different ways of thinking about texts and materials. And it turns out that a lot of work in humanities classrooms, especially at the beginning of a course or the beginning of a class, is really just basic reading assessment. So the instructor might say something like, all right, who did the reading, what happened, what did you think, but really low-hanging fruit. And what the instructor is actually wondering is, did my students even do the reading? And did they baseline think about it? And then maybe at the very end of a seminar, you get to the juicy stuff, textual interpretation. But the kinds of assessments that we use for reading in humanities or social science classrooms include this kind of wasted class time, or these really annoying things like pre-reading response papers. So the night before class, write 3 paragraphs that basically just prove that you did the reading. Students hate it, instructors hate it, it's a waste of time. But that's mostly how learning management systems have managed this sort of seminar, is upload this 3 paragraphs that just say, I did the reading. And last but not least, when our team was first designing Lacuna, we wanted to see not just what practices are we already valuing in higher education, but what new opportunities for learning might technology provide. So we designed Lacuna, recognizing that there are, of course, lots of other annotation platforms out there, but what we wanted was sort of a one-stop shop, where students could do their reading, they could annotate. They would then have sort of a back end where they could synthesize their hundreds or thousands of annotations and think through them, a space where then they could write and use their annotations in their writing, and then finally a space for the instructor to manage all these annotations. So especially if you have a class of 100 students and they're each doing 1,000 or more annotations, as an instructor, it's sort of data overload. How is this actually a useful tool for educational assessment? So I'm going to turn over to Daniel, and we're going to walk through each of these parts and how we design them into Lacuna.
You guys look like you're ready to see how this works. So each institution that's using Lacuna has its own instance or page. In this case, we can see the Stanford page. The courses are arrayed according to term on the home page. When you click on a course, you're taken to the course information page. Here, if you're a member of the course, you can access the course materials, which are arrayed according to units chosen by the instructor. And here I would like to note quickly that all the texts on Lacuna, in contrast to some of the other projects we've seen today and yesterday, are individual text files uploaded by instructors. So in this way, the course is kind of hermetically sealed from the rest of the web. But we can talk about the consequences of that later. This brings us to the more interesting part of how Lacuna enables annotation and social annotation in particular. So when you go into a text, you'll see that the annotation filter appears on the right side of the text. This filter allows you to determine which annotations you see. This could be no annotations at all if you're if you find them distracting. It could be every annotation. It could be your own annotations. It also allows you to filter annotations by the individual who made them, the category of the annotation, and the tag of the annotation. So, for example, an instructor might go through the text beforehand and leave discussion questions as annotations for the students, and they can filter according to the instructor with this tool. The annotations show up as highlights, kind of in the standard way we've seen many times. We have a histogram of annotations at the top of the text. This allows the instructor and the reader to find which parts of the text attracted the most attention, the most questions, the most discussion. When you make an annotation, you have the option of deciding a few things about that annotation. You can decide what category it belongs to. Once again, this is something that instructors find useful when they're designing assignments. You can decide what the privacy settings for the annotation are. For example, whether you want it to be for you alone, between you and the instructor, or for everyone in the class to see. And finally, you can add tags to the annotation. This is really crucial because one of the things instructors want their students to do is to structure their reading, to organize their reading in certain ways. And so this allows instructors to design assignments. For example, you could assign you can instruct your students to find 5 examples of a simile in a text and tag them accordingly, and then the students can find them easily in this way. One of the things we also realize is that instructors want their students to make connections within and across text and to connect passages within a text. So with this in mind and using the metaphor of sewing and stitching together annotations, we developed what we call the sewing kit. When you go into the sewing kit in a course, you will find all of the public annotations made in that course. It's going slowly. Once you have these annotations in front of you, you can filter according to the user who made them, the tag, once again, the category, the text that they were made on. In this case, we'll filter by Foucault, naturally. And once you've decided which annotations you would like to stitch together, you can select them and add them to a thread. In this case, we have a thread called Good Paper Ideas. Once you've begun a thread, you can remove annotations from it, add more annotations to it. You can move them around, reorder them, as we see here. You can add a comment to the thread. And if you click on this icon, it'll take you to the original annotation in its original place in the text.
So after all this synthesis work, in most humanities or social science classrooms, then the end result is, of course, an essay. So through all this synthesis work, what we see is instructors doing things like, instead of writing a paper proposal, create a thread. Show me all the quotes you want to use, organize them, describe the thread, and then instructors can go and give comments on that, add their own quotes and say, great paper idea, I think you might want a quote here, I think you might want a passage here. So then on Lacuna, students can do all of their writing. So this can include anything from class notes to short paper responses to their final essays. And the interface is pretty simple. Students choose a title, put in text, add media. They can choose genres. Everything in the uploaded on the site has a bibliography created. So there's an easy automatic bibliography creator. And then using the same tag logic, you can add tags to all your writing. So then I can step back and say, this tag, let's say, feminism and Foucault and globalization. Here's all the annotations on that, all the materials on that, all of my writing on these threads. One of the reasons we redesigned Lacuna last year to have multiple courses is so at an institution like Stanford, for instance, we'll see students taking more than one course on Lacuna, and then all of their annotations across courses are all in their sewing kit. So when it comes time to, for instance, write your senior thesis, you can do that same work, step back and say, across 10 different courses, I've made thousands of annotations. Now I want to synthesize them into a larger work. Student writing can also be annotated. So it's a new way for students to sort of peer review each other's work, to give comments or feedback, or for instructors then to avoid the process of getting a Microsoft Word file from a student, downloading it, track changes, sending it back. Different systems don't work together. All the work is just done here on the site. And last but not least, the fun and pretty stuff. We run Lacuna on Drupal, and it handles data very well, so then we flip the annotation data back into D3 visualizations, where an instructor can see across the course what categories are being used, how are they being shared, length of annotations. You can click on an individual student and see what text they've annotated, how many annotations per text, what categories they've been doing, or click on a text and see what different students have been annotating that text and the kind of work that they've been doing. And at any point, then click View in the Sewing Kit, and then you can see all those annotations in context. This is the #1 requested feature from instructors from our beta version, is I love that students are doing all this work. How do I assess it? So usually this will be used in the form of like participation grade. Like 20% of your grade is do at least 50 annotations per week, and this makes it easy for instructors to assess that, but also for students to get a sense of all the work they've been doing on the site, especially in comparison to their peers. Open source has been a big theme, as everything good should be open source. So Lacuna is open source, available on GitHub, so any institution can download it and install it. We've made it tablet and mobile phone accessible, because that's something that our students have been requesting over and over. So we're really excited about this open source community, and cool things have come from it. So for example, a few months ago, Dartmouth installed Lacuna, but they are really invested in edX, so they built an LTI, so their students can still have their course on edX. So they click a button that says Open in Lacuna, and it automatically creates text, and then they can read them on Lacuna. Princeton was waiting for this, so then in the open source community, they said, great, this is what we wanted, so then they could take it. They integrated their LTIs, and now we're taking that LTI back to Stanford and integrating it with other LMSs like Canvas. And that's it. Thanks.